do you actually believe?
Yeah.
And he says, well, I live my life as if there's a God.
Right, yeah.
Which is not, it's not a terrible answer, but it is wishy-washier than, well,
Yeah.
of course I do.
He keeps kind of, and part of the problem is he has different definitions of things. So, like, for example, someone would ask him whether Christ is God, and then he would reinterpret that into, is the Logos divine? And the Logos would have a certain meaning for him in his Jungian hierarchical, crazy kind of world, right? And then divine would also have a different kind of a meaning, right? So he's always giving these.
And it would take an hour to answer.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see two important crisis points.
Right.
The first one is in Peterson's life, in his world. There's the narrative world. There's the world of archetypes and hierarchies and psychology.
Yeah.
And there's the objective world. There's like what you figure out by science.
Yeah.
Okay. And up to now, he's basically kept those two things apart. Now, he still would say, and I think he's right about this, that certain things in the narrative world are real. Like, to give kind of a silly example, the number one is real. It's not like you can put it under a microscope, but the number one is real in an important way. All right, so in a similar kind of a way, Peterson would say that certain kinds of things are very real, but they're not real in the objective world. They're real in the narrative world, okay? So the crisis point is this. Christianity claims that the narrative world and the objective world touched. That this concept of, the Logos, the divine, the Christ, God, and
it's not
Mary.
It's not just that this powerful narrative is important to mankind.
Right.
It did happen.
It's that it happened in Bethlehem, right? So that is a huge crisis for him. And in this interview he did with the icon carver, you can just hear it. You can tell that it moves him very deeply, and he's very troubled by it. So that's number one. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. Number two is this sort of fear of the idea of the moral perfection of God. And this is where he reminded me of Martin Luther, okay? Because Martin Luther was so scrupulous in his morality.
Yeah. Do you want to do a little psychology of Martin Luther? Or you need to get your point two out?
Let me get the point two out. Right. So Luther would go to confession, confess all his sins, leave the confessional, and then say, "Oh, there's another one," and Peterson has that same element going on. Like he describes the idea of belief in God as terrifying him. Mm-hmm. He talks about who would dare say they believe in God, right? And I'll try to explain a little bit more how Luther overcame that later on. But there's a very strong
a real similarity.
I see a very strong similarity between the way Luther dealt with. He could never confess enough. He could never win God's favor. And Jordan Peterson saying, "Who dares say they believe in God?" There's a very strong similarity between what they're going through there.
He seems tortured by basically the biggest questions that a human being could ask.
Yeah.